Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our channel Paws On Animation and our Paws On Tubi segment.
In today's podcast, we're covering the animated series Shezow.
Shezow, got me, Shezow. Well, this is a series that I personally loved watching years ago. It's a superhero series that shows a boy named Guy, yes really, who puts on his late aunt's silver ring and wow! And normally becomes the female superhero
Shezow!
From there, the most bizarre adventures happen. You go, girl!
But before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and vacation wins a future podcast and want to pause videos.
Thank you for joining us, subscribing, sharing our videos, commenting, helping us on our path to over 2,000 subscribers. We appreciate you so much. When I first saw this, Rascal introduced me to it with a pilot. So, let's talk about how we first learned of it, and then we can take you down our rewatch of this show.
Okay, so yes, it came on years ago, of course, on regular cable. Mom saw it, told her about it, and she really liked the idea behind it, so she watched it. And we got to see the whole series on demand at the time, and she absolutely loved it. And it was on the Hub network when it aired. And I actually ended up showing her the pilot for it long after when we were doing this thing. We were finding lost pilots of shows that were never made. And this pilot was actually pitched to Disney years ago. Because Disney didn't pick up any of the shorts, but it was part of a thing called Shorty McShort shorts, and Shezow was one of them. It got made into a show, but it wasn't even by Disney, so I guess Disney said, screw this, we're not doing this anymore.
Well, and another miss.
Right, and it was a pretty different from what we see in the show. But Mom thought it was pretty cool to see where it started. They still had the same concept, but I said, yeah, you need to update the designs and everything. And she still enjoyed it. I said, well, I'm glad Disney didn't get it. Now it'd be over.
Yes. For those of you not familiar with Shezow, it's an animated superhero comedy TV series created by Obi Scott Wade. And he was inspired by Shazam.
Yes.
And it began airing on Network 10 Australia back in December of 2012. And the age target was 6 to 11 years old.
Oh, like KO.
Anybody can love it because it was absolutely funny.
It was KO.
There were quite a few production companies, unbelievably. Had Shezow Productions, Vision Animation, Kickstar Productions, Obico, Film Victoria, Moody Street Kids, Network 10 Productions, and DHX Media.
Mm-hmm.
And it aired through 2014.
Right, so about a year.
Yeah. There are 26 episodes or 52 segments like Star vs. the Forces of Evil.
Right.
But we count every two as an episode.
Right. And with this, with the original one, we just kind of watched, almost binge watching at that point.
Yeah.
This one, we took our time because we wanted to see what we remembered. There's quite a bit we did remember from the first time, and then lots that we didn't. And the thing is, have to really point this out. When it starts off, it's hilarious. It was clever. It was funny. It's poking fun at the superhero tropes and the feminine tropes and things without throwing shade at either gender. It was just poking fun at these things and exaggerating stuff. And we did notice the further along the series got, unfortunately, it started to change tactics.
Yeah.
It stopped being tongue-in-cheek with female superheroes and male superheroes and comic book tropes. It's just doing really bizarre episodes that had nothing to do with being a superhero. And when it got towards the end, we weren't enjoying it as much. But for the first maybe 15 or 16 episodes, it was a really clever and creative show.
Definitely. And some of the puns, everything was a she something that he
used.
She stick,
she slap,
she
a cool.
Is it she car?
She a cool.
She a cool. Everything was preceded by she, and then you could see where Lipstick Taser was inspired because he had a lipstick taser in the show. Yes. It was really funny and smart and different. And while we were watching it, at no time were we thinking it was a boy who wanted to be a girl.
Because he was upset every time he transformed.
Well, what was hilarious is that his best friend was too dumb to know it was him at first and had a crush on Shezow.
Oh my God.
But when he found out it wasn't Shezow, it was his friend,
he's like,
Guy, then he was like, oh, okay. Now, part of this is also interesting because the sister thought she was supposed to be Shezow. Of course, since she's female, she thought it would be her. And his sister's name was Kelly?
Yes.
Kelly. And Kelly kept saying she would be a better superhero and she should have gotten a ring, and he ruined it for her. Well, Rascal did mention about how perfect one of the episodes is because it shows you if she got the ring, what would have happened.
Yes. And due to a bizarre rule in the book, she got the ring for a day and got to be Shezow for a day. Because she was part of a fan club of it. Now she got to be her. Well, she did way too much in a day. She was incredibly arrogant. She was more about showing off and showing how great her accomplishments are. And it was going so off the rails that the villains were beginning to have a one-up over her because she was neglecting a lot of her duties just to show how great she was with the ring. So when Guy finally got it back, he was able to defeat the bad guys. And it was something that Ben 10 had about the same time as well, where the one that was supposed to be the smarter one, quote unquote, and the more capable one, the more strategic one, didn't get the weapon that, and the one who's crazy as heck and likes to have fun and goof off and things usually gets it. And it's like, well, why does this goofball have it and the one who's got the brain should? And both shows proved why the protagonist has it, because as crazy as Guy is, he's trying to be a superhero and learning. Kelly just wanted fame and attention. Yeah. And the same thing happened with Gwen.
And she was very arrogant.
Yes.
And she really thought she was better than everyone else.
Yes, she was.
And she was very condescending to Guy, and it was like, yeah, it's good you didn't get the ring.
Right.
So I do want to mention that within Australia, a different person voices Guy outside of Australia. Mm-hmm. One of our favorite Sam Vincent voices Guy and Shezow.
Yes.
And Shezow. But in Australia is Dan Hamill. So depending on where you are, you're going to have, David Miles Brown. And you're going to have someone different you hear. But we say, of course, you got to hear it with Sam Vincent.
Right.
He's spectacular. You have Jackie Brennan as Sheila, the aunt.
Yes.
Right? And Tara and Grilla and Null and Madame Curiador. And then someone named Lyle Brooks voices over 30 characters.
Yeah, bunch.
And you have Matt Hill as Maz's best friend. And Karina is Kelly.
Matt is Matt, okay.
And last, Justin Kennedy is Big Chow Slim. So I wanted to get to the cast because definitely you're going to hear differences when you hear the American, the Western version outside of Australia versus one in Australia.
Right.
So we need to let you know we watched the one that was specifically for here.
Right.
And again, we absolutely loved it. Now, there were controversies also for this show. Mm-hmm. But before we get to that, I do want to mention that the country of origin is listed as the U.S. and Australia and Canada and Malaysia. Most likely because of all the production companies.
Right.
And this is where you got the start, like Johnny Test, to having the same music appear within the scope of an episode. And it had the
same humor as Johnny Test, too.
So, and that was brilliant. I thought that was brilliant for Johnny Test. It was brilliant here, and I think this came out before Johnny Test, correct?
I think so, yeah.
So when you hear the music, you know what part of the episode you're going to be at, whether it's the beginning, the climax, a prologue, or whatever.
The fighting, yeah.
You know from the music that you hear. And it was brilliant that the same music was used the entire first season. They didn't have to pay a lot of people to keep having music or pay for rights. They got their own music, and again, you could tell where you were within the episode by the music that's played.
Right.
I thought that was brilliant, the same way I thought it was for Johnny Test, and I think a lot more Western shows should do that. It will cut their budgets dramatically.
Right. And I really like some creative episodes they did during the first half of the series, like when they had one where Guy went back in time to pass Shezow.
Yes.
And it went from all the way back to even the caveman era. I thought that was really creative. So he learned more about how this ring's been passed down for literally since the dawn of time. And then it was another one where they got to go to, I don't know if it was another dimension or another back in time, but there was something that happened where they got to see the aunt before she passed. And they actually got to ask her what happened with the ring, because he just put it on as a joke and he got the powers. Right. And she tells him, yes, he was always meant to have it. He might have been a boy, but he did have more of the heart of a hero and the traits that Shezow supposed to deliver
yes.
instead of Kelly, because you see what happened with her. So I thought that was a really great episode, and one of their more surprisingly deeper ones to show that he was meant to be the hero. Yes, he was a boy, but he was meant to be the hero.
Yes. Now, there was a little bit of controversy. Some groups stating that he was going to confuse kids about gender, and some people saying that it was appropriate, and the concept of superhero having a new persona be a crime fighter is familiar to children. So, the creator addressed this. He denied claims by those such as Ben Shapiro and Breitbart News on the show, saying there was no political agenda and that the critics are reading a lot into it, saying that the show focuses more on the responsibility of the protagonist and less about gender. And he said that gender issues were not explored much in the show, which is true.
Right.
And stated in another interview that Shezow is not transgendered, but is a boy whose gender never changes as he's trapped in a silly costume. And
they even say within the show, too.
It's absolutely funny and it's fun. And if you've never seen it, this is one you should watch. It's one of those cartoons, Western cartoons, that just hit the mark and didn't become widespreadly known enough.
Yeah.
It's definitely underrated and underappreciated. And even with the series starting to veer off toward latter in the season, it's still a great watch.
Yes.
So last but not least, we thought we were going to get a second season. In a 2016 interview, the creator mentioned that he went on to start season 2 production at Shezow at Hub Network with a bigger budget than the first season. After Hub Network went under a major rebranding to Discovery Family, he was told that your show's not going to happen.
Oh, man.
He still was going to try to do under his own company, Obico Entertainment. It didn't happen. He did release the debut issue of the Shezow comic series in 2015. He had mentioned there was supposed to be a second issue later that year, but unfortunately, as of now, there's never been a second issue.
And it seems like they just decided to halt production on Shezow indefinitely. But who knows? It might be a time where all of a sudden Shezow makes a comeback or revival or something out of nowhere, like Johnny Test came back out of nowhere. So, we might see this again at some point on Netflix or something.
What you have to remember is that when this came out in 2012, 2013, you had a lot of groups that were against the show, and most of them didn't even watch it.
No,
they probably saw and decided, oh no, we've got to fight against this. But it's fun. It's pretty wholesome. You got a couple of things that, like I said, with the best friend falls for him, and I know
gross out a little bit,
But it's fun, and it's definitely a superhero show. He's definitely a superhero, and as Rascal mentioned, he does do his best to be the best hero he can. There are a couple episodes where, like one where he gets fat because he won't listen,
and constantly eating soda,
and another one where things happen to him because again he doesn't listen, but he learns the lessons by the end of the episode. And what I like is that the creator, as the episodes progress, you will see the lessons that he learned previously were implemented into future episodes, and they weren't forgotten like it never happened, which happens with a lot of Western shows. It didn't do it in this, and I really like that aspect.
Yes.
So if any of you have seen Shezow, let us know in the comments. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was meh? One funny thing we forgot to mention, in an alternate universe, there's Dude Pal.
Yes! Gender bent version of him. And exactly what you think.
Yes, and if you haven't seen it, look for it, find it. It's free on Tubi.
Yes.
Watch it, come back, and tell us what you think.
And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates and weekly videos for the anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. Subscribe and share our videos. We hope you're enjoying Superhero Month. We've got lots more for you this month. Lots of favorites and new ones like Shezow you may not know about.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
So,
as always,
you are specials. Thank you so much for watching. Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.
Rivers and streams, plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket.